Honourable John Banks.
I rise on behalf of the ACT Party and the people of Epsom to support the statement of the Prime Minister. Over the summer break, I've had the opportunity to get out and about to talk to New Zealanders, the sort of people that you represent, Mr Deputy Speaker. People from the South Island, from Picton, Westport, Greymouth and Hokitika, and of course the people of Remuera, Parnell and Mount Eden. I've been out and about taking stock. New Zealanders are working harder and much longer for a lot less. What they want is freedom to achieve through their own efforts and enterprise. What they don't want is handouts, and they almost all reject the entitlement society. They back the Prime Minister and they rate John Key. They don't see Labour, the Greens and Winston First, the coalition of the dispirited, the deluded and the bewildered, as an alternative government. That's what they said to me in Picton, in Westport, in Greymouth and in Hokitika, and of course in Remuera, Parnell and Mount Eden over the summer. They don't see David Shearer as a Prime Minister, even less they don't see Russell Norman as the Minister of Finance. To a man and to a woman up and down the country, they say that Mr Shearer is a nice man. And most members of this Parliament will attest that Mr Shearer is a nice man. But a nice man is the kiss of death for a political leader, Mr Deputy Speaker. They don't see David Shearer as a future Prime Minister. They see him as an interim leader of a dysfunctional Labour Party opposition. That's what they see David Shearer. And I remember Winston First, when he was so good he could comb his hair while approaching a speed camera. When he was so good he could have this House in fits of laughter and hysteria. When he was so good he made points that cut through everything. And today he is now part of the bewildered and the deluded, the coalition of losers that the people I mention don't want a bar of. So, Mr Speaker, I tell them that under MMP we could have these people on this side of the House. They say, hardly, Banksy. It couldn't be true that we could have David Shearer as Prime Minister. And I said the way MMP works, that losers with loser coalitions could easily become Prime Ministers of this country. And what a catastrophic day it would be for investment, growth and jobs for the South West Pacific if these people ever got on this side of the House. The ACT Party and the people of Epsom back John Key as Prime Minister. But we want the government, the national part of this coalition government, to do more to resist and roll back the entitlement society that has enveloped us. We want this government to expand the freedom to achieve. What Labour promises is hands-on government, is a government of hands-out and sapping culture of entitlement. And never forget, political parties in opposition big enough to promise you everything you want are governments in government big enough to take from you everything you have. What Labour promises is more handouts, more borrowing, more taxes and no solution. We saw one single policy of the Labour Party, part of the coalition of losers last year, when they announced that they were going to build 10,000 houses a year for $300,000 each. Well, it didn't last very long, because after a 6-week break on the beaches of Northland, the parliamentary leader of the Labour Party came back and said, I got it all wrong, it was probably a medium figure. I was in Westport. You cannot buy a home in Westport for $300,000. You cannot buy a home in Picton. You cannot buy a home in Hokitika for $300,000. You certainly can't buy a home anywhere in Auckland for $300,000. What we want to do is resist and roll back the entitlement society. We want this government to expand the freedom to achieve. That's what the ACT Party believes in. In Labour's world, to get ahead is to put your hand in the pocket of the person beside you. That's the way you get ahead. It's not about the freedom to achieve through enterprise of your own efforts. It's about taking from someone else's hard work. Take housing. Young Aucklanders want to buy or build a home in their own backyard. Yet the median price in Auckland is now almost 7 times the median household income. Auckland is almost as unaffordable as London. And we know that housing unaffordability is complex. However, Mr Deputy Speaker, the major culprit is central and local government, the RMA, Metropolitan Urban Limits and the building regulations. What's the opposition's response? Labor promises to build government houses to fix a problem largely created by them, the Labor Party of 9 years on this side of the House. No word on where the money will come from to build 10,000 houses a year. A promise of $300,000 a home, and that will just give you chicken coops in Auckland if you're very, very lucky. And on Sunday, Mr Shearer told the country that he's going to hold a conference this year to work out Labor Party policy. He's going to hold a conference to work out Labor Party policy, but at Wainui Martin, north of Wellington on Sunday afternoon, he announced the Labor Party policy. And the Labor Party policy for circa 2013 is we really can't build homes for $300,000, even here in Wainui-o-Mata. It's not good enough. They're showing they're not serious. The present leader proves that the Labor Party are not serious about moving across the aisle to this side of the House. They've not uttered one word on RMA reform. And that's the focus of this coalition government. RMA reform. Here is my prediction. They will vote against every major RMA reform this year that will help young New Zealanders get their first home without a government handout. The single most helpful thing that we can do in this Parliament is RMA reform to make it easier for young people to get up the ladder of housing ownership. And now the Greens won't be outdone in the auction of make-believe money. For them, the government will not only build the house, but loan you the money to build the house that the opposition said that they were going to build 10,000 of each year. What they won't say is how many houses or how much it will cost, because they're not very good on the numbers. Because I haven't heard in 14 months in this Parliament anything that this government does that is supported by the Green Party. What they say is how many houses and how much it will cost. What we do know is that you can't have backyards for kids to play in and the RMA can't be touched. After promising make-believe houses with make-believe money, the next day the Greens attack the dairy industry that helps New Zealanders earn its way in the real world and pays taxes so they can keep on spending if they ever get on this side of the House. The real wealth earners out in the hinterland. For them, the Greens, wealth is created by the printing press, not by working hard, taking risks, selling things other people want and saving. The party of old dudes and young fogies. I've told the government we have a 1 in 20-year chance to get it right and do it once. We need to be bold. ACT will be helping. In other areas, the government is moving towards giving New Zealanders the freedom to achieve and away from the policies of handouts and the politics of entitlement. ACT wants National to pick up the pace. There's 3 examples. Partnership schools about freedom to achieve for talented educators, dedicated parents and kids who need a break. We'll have a bill providing for regulatory standards around decreasing disclosure for government bills and increasing openness and transparency. ACT spending cap will help New Zealanders better understand how much politicians spend and how quality that spending is. ACT wants the government to keep moving towards the freedom to achieve and away from the culture of entitlement that zaps initiative and confidence and independence. Mr Deputy Speaker, we reject Mr Shearer's hands-on government and nanny state hands-out. We know anything is possible, however humble your origins, if you simply give New Zealanders the freedom to achieve. New Zealanders want the freedom to achieve through their own effort and enterprise. They don't want handouts. They don't want the coalition of dispirited and deluded and bewildered in government. They don't want a government of handouts that takes from others who work hard. They don't want a coalition that is not serious about policies for good of all New Zealanders. They don't want a coalition that will stop young New Zealanders from paying their own way into their first homes. RMA reform.
Order.
ACT stands for freedom, choice and responsibility. ACT stands for the culture of entitlement and against the culture of entitlement that zaps independence. That's what we stand against. ACT believes and stands for
Order. The
all
member's
New
time has
Zealanders
expired.
given the opportunity and freedom to achieve.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Peter Dunn.